Jennifer, are you ready? Let's get into the game review. We're going to review Maracaibo. It is a 2019 game. The designer is Alexander Pfister. Alexander Pfister, as we all know, has done Mombasa. He has done Great Western Trail. He is a designer of our times. He's a designer of the moment. He is putting out some very interesting stuff.
Right.
We also talked a few weeks ago about Expedition to New Dale that we tried, which was quite good.
I would love to try.
Quite good. Liked it. A lighter game than his other stuff, but solidly medium, not lighter than medium. The artists are Aline Kerman and Andreas Resch, and it's supposed to play in about 40 minutes per player. I think that is within the realm of possibility. I think for us, we play a little longer than that because it's a thinky game. And it's currently got a weight on Board Game Geek of 3.86. Jennifer, what is Maracaibo about in a nutshell?
Well, Maracaibo is about going places and doing things and getting victory points.
We are 17th century pirates.
Well,
we are traveling around.
I'm not sure if we're actually pirates. And in fact, I don't think we are, because the combat, we are fighting with the European powers.
But that means we are privateers.
Right. That would be correct.
Yes, but a privateer is a pirate. It's just a pirate that has got a letter of marque, so they have sanction by a government to fight for them.
Right. Actually, the whole privateer thing fits better because what you do, you can, hey, I was with Spain, but hey, Britain's offering better, so I'm going to go and change my letter of marque, and it's going to be...
There is no plundering action or anything like that.
No.
If you think about Great Western Trail is you start off out in the wilderness. You are taking these cows and you're moving them through the West to market. And over the course of the game, the West is populating. Towns are springing up, things are happening, all that sort of stuff, and you are trying to get the best cows. You're trying to get award-winning cows, and you are trying to get them to market, to deliver them to the best places that you possibly can. In Maracaibo, you are doing a circular trip around the Caribbean. Your ship can move on any given turn from 1 to 7 spaces, and you can choose entirely how far you want to go. The game takes 4 rounds to play, and a round ends when one person basically completes a circle and gets back to Havana, which is the starting location. Which means, much like what Alexander Pfister was trying to do with Great Western Trail, is that it has a variable pace. The pace of the game is a major strategic component in the game, because if people turtle and they move just a little bit at a time, they could take 7, 8, 9 actions before they complete a single round, which new players tend to do.
Right.
And now that I've got a few plays under my belt, I told them when I explained the game on Friday, I was like, you could do a lot of actions. Some jerk might rush to the end, and all of a sudden you're stuck holding the bag, and you didn't get to do the things that you really wanted to do.
Right.
And I said, beware of that, because I am that jerk.
Right. Well, the whole thing is, you look at that rule, right? At this 1 to 7, and it's over as soon as one person ends around, the entire round is over. Okay, so what happens? I believe you can do the whole board in 3 turns.
I believe so.
So what happens if I do that 4 times? Do I win? And I've seen someone do it, and they did not win. Okay, yeah, because basically, because there's some core things, I think, some core strategies that you need to pursue.
Sure.
Because you can still do the exploration strategy and go at a pace.
Yes.
You cannot do the assistant strategy very well, though, and go at a pace because you're always stopping.
So let's talk about that. Some of the ways you can score points in this game, because it is most victory points wins at the end of the game. One of the major ways to score victory points is to fight as a privateer. There are 3 powers in the game. There is France, there is England, and there is Spain. And there are a couple spaces on the board where you can fight. Sometimes there'll be other spaces that will pop up or other opportunities that'll pop up to fight. But when you fight, what you're actually doing is you are going to flip over one of these tiles that is your battle tile, and you are choosing who to fight for. As an example, if you fight for France, they will give you 4 swords to fight for them.
Right.
Spain is only going to give you 2 swords, but they'll sweeten the pot and give you $3 to fight for them.
Right, yeah.
And England is going to be difficult. They're only going to give you 3 swords. And if you fight for them, they're going to charge you a coin. You're going to have to spend a coin. Or maybe go the other way. They're going to give you a victory point if you fight for them, just for fighting for them.
Yeah. One thing I did want to kind of say about the game, you know, there is some thoughts about placing it in the Caribbean during a time of slavery.
Yes.
Right? Okay, so, you know, what do we want to do with that? Do I, at least as a person who cares about slavery, I am...
Well, you are a woman of color, so...
I am African-American, but I don't believe that African-Americans own opinions on that. I believe that there are many white people who care just as much as I do about depicting a game or even a movie or whatever in that at that time. I felt that Pfister did a reasonably sensitive job with it by adding the information that he was aware of this time. He was aware of the slavery. You are not ever actually transporting true goods, right? Because like when you discard the people, the cards are people, then you can, you know, abstract that to, well, this person is carrying that good to that place.
Sure. The only thing I would say is there is a plantation master card.
Yeah, that one is very interesting. Yes.
Which you gain advantages by putting your workers on that card and leaving them there for the rest of the game.
Right. Now, the question there, because I'm also dealing with that in a computer game called Anno 1800, the way they deal with that is that everybody is equal. So even though the workers are there, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're not getting paid.
Interestingly, do you think because this game largely sidesteps the issue of slavery, does that whitewash slavery?
Well, you know, that's part of being in the Caribbean. So you cannot do a game during that time in the Americans, in the Americas and ignore slavery. That's just not going to happen because it was there. In the Caribbean, though, you have more indigenous people.
Yes.
Right. And some of those indigenous people were enslaved.
Sure.
And a few of them were free. And some of them were, you know, Africans who had either escaped their ships or their ships, you know, had sunk and they had gotten to the islands.
Sure.
So you have a little bit of a different feel.
Got it.
You know, and it's not worker based like Puerto Rico is, right?
Yes.
Because the cards all have white people on them.
The quote unquote colonists.
Right, yes, right. You know, so the cards all have white people, you know, there are these people, there are these Europeans. So you aren't pretending.
What I found so interesting is that for components, Alexander Pfister decided to use the dark brown colonists from Puerto Rico as a piece in the game, but it's not. Those are the pieces that are on your ship.
Oh, right. Yeah. Right.
Right.
Yeah.
It does not represent. It does not represent slaves at all.
No.
In any way, shape, or form.
No.
But it's odd that he chose, of all the pieces that you could choose to represent that he chose those. It's almost like it's a nod to that, to say this is not that game.
Right. It could be. Those discs suck, though.
Yeah. Let's say that Underwater Cities and Maracaibo share a feature in which a design of the game is to take two very small discs and put one on top of the other.
Right.
And then occasionally pull one off without pulling the other one off and not knock it over as you're reaching for cards and all that sort of stuff. Basically, it creates an unwanted dexterity game in the middle of a medium-heavy Euro.
Right. You know, I mean, fortunately, in Maracaibo, there aren't so many slots that you get completely lost, right?
Yes.
Most times you can reconstruct the board if you
they're about
knock it over.
10 or 12
but
spaces.
I'm hoping that someone, you know, Meeple Source or Meeple Realty will come up with a better board.
A three-dimensional board with
the right.
depth to it.
Exactly, yeah.
Yep. I think that's right. Getting back to the game, when you fight for one of these powers, you are going to be able to move up in the prestige that you have for that power. And sometimes you're going to be able to take a cube of that power and put it out on the map.
Right.
You can put one action space is going to allow you to put, or I'm sorry, one action that you have available to you is going to allow you to put a cube on a city. And when the cities have flags that give you benefits, there is a space that you can unlock on your own personal board that will allow you to put cubes in the other version. So so there are two types of spaces on the board. There are cities and there are villages. Cities are action spaces on the board that say right on there, printed on the board or printed on the tile that you put there.
Very obvious.
Tells you what you go there and you can do this.
Yeah.
One of the things you can do is you can trade goods. Your cards, your hand of cards, you start up with a hand of 8 cards. You're going to discard down to about 4.
Right.
And your cards have value in terms of, in the upper left-hand corner, it has a cost. That's the cost to play that card. If you play that card, you're going to be able to get the benefits of that card. Some of them are very, very good. Some of them give you income over the course of the game. Income could be either doubloons or it can be victory points.
Okay. I do want to make sure that everyone understands one thing that is somewhat implied, but sometimes, okay. So like when you go to, let's say, a city that has actions, and then it also has a space to discard a card to put the resource down.
Correct.
Those are not related.
Correct. They are.
Okay.
Yes. Good point.
Yeah, I just
You could do either. You could do both.
Right.
You could do neither. I don't know why you would be going there, but you could do neither.
Right.
Then there are these smaller spaces all over the board, which are villages. Villages are interesting because they don't have any action associated with them, but there is a general action called village actions, and that is based on the number of spaces you have moved to get there.
Right.
So if you move one space at the start of the game, you don't get to take any village actions. Or no, you get to take one village action. You have to move 4 spaces before you can take 2 village actions at a village. And at the beginning of the game, you have to move 7 before you can take 3 village actions. Village actions at the beginning of the game are very simple. One village action is take a coin. One village action is pay for and build a card from your hand or from your display in front of you so that you're activating a card. And then the third one is discard the rest of your hand and take 2 coins. But you can unlock more things. Let's talk about unlocking really quick. This is upgrading your ship. Remember when I said there's that dexterity game of those 2 little circles that are on top of each other? You're going to have about 24 circles or something like that on your board, covering up 12 spaces. When you trade and you discard a card, you take off one of those little discs and you put it on that city. There'll be other places where it says discard a cube, a circle as well. When you have discarded both circles that are on top of a space on your board, you get that benefit right away. That benefit could be those village actions now are going to come faster. Now all of a sudden you move only 2 spaces and you get 2 village actions. It can unlock different village actions where you can move up your swords, which are going to help you when you're fighting for these various powers. There are ones where you get $5, where you get 3 victory points, and so on and so forth.
Right.
There is a explorer track at the bottom of the map. This is the people that go inland and go for all of the real treasures. And there will be spaces on the board that will allow you to move your explorer along that track, much like the train action in Great Western Trail.
Yeah,
it is like that. But unlike that, there are, everywhere you go, you're going to be getting some small reward.
Right. I thought it was much better implemented in Maracaibo than it is in Great Western Trail. I think one of the things, I mean, you still have that thing where, one person puts their train someplace and then they just sit there, right? And also that the special things that you got from those spaces were tremendous,
yes,
right? And you don't have that in Maracaibo, and I think that's an improvement.
I think that it might be an improvement too. There are several different paths that you can choose on the Explorer track, meaning that you can go the shorter route or you can take a little bit of a detour in order to get something better along the way. So there are some good meaty choices in that experience as well. And then there are the cards that you have in your hand to play are very interesting. The cards can be used in several different ways. One, they can be discarded for the resource on the card. There are 3 basic types of trade goods. Each card has one of those types, and each city you stop at requires one of those types. So you can discard those cards and basically improve your ship by taking those circles off of your ship and unlocking new power. So that's a good thing you can do with it. Another thing is there are quests out there on the board. There are these quest tiles, and the top of a quest tile will say exactly what it needs. And a lot of times it needs 2 of a quest resource. And each one of these cards also has a quest resource. So there are 2 different types of resources listed on the cards.
What's interesting to me is that those quests are most times at villages, and sometimes they might even be where one of your assistants, which you haven't spoken of yet, but I'm sure you will, are going to be, and you can only do one.
Correct.
So you cannot go there and do everything. And when you are on your turn, you must move. So you're not allowed to sit there and just milk everything.
So I have a quest tile that I really need to get at a particular village, but I also need to play a card, which is a village action. When I go to that space, I can only do one or the other. And once I've done one or the other, I can't do the other. I have to move on.
And the other problem is that you have to, if you don't do the quest, you're leaving it for everybody but behind you. And you're like, wow, man, I definitely don't want Tom getting that one.
I made Elder cry last night by taking the quest he wanted.
Really?
Well, okay. He cried on the inside, but...
Right, yeah. It was obvious, right?
It was a problem. Jennifer, tell us about the assistants.
Okay, so in the assistant, some of the cards at the top will have a blue number. And so what that says is to take one of your assistants, you start with 2 at the start of the game, and put it on that space. So when you land on that space, you can do the assistant action. And the actions are almost every time good. As has been pointed out, they get better the further along the track because there's a bigger chance of you never being able to do them. So we were playing with a 15-year-old, and he had, I think, 7 assistants.
Wow.
It was his first time playing, and he came to within 1 point of Bruce, who is probably one of the best game players in Southern California, with his assistant.
He's all right.
Okay, all right. Oh, excuse me. Tom is the best player. I'm sorry. I screwed up. Again.
So I hope you're getting an image of what this game is like. It's an Alexander Fisher, so it's not always the easiest thing to visualize, but you are trying to do the following. You're moving your ship from port to port.
Right.
Some people are moving fast and they're taking up a lot of spaces. Some people are going one to the other and picking up these rewards and these benefits that you can get. While you're doing that, you are unlocking new abilities on your ship by getting rid of discs and discarding cards. You are picking up quests that are going to be worth points. The other thing I should say is you have a career at the start of the game. At the start of the game, you get dealt 2 cards that give you
right.
sort of, I would just say it is suggestions as to how to play your game.
Right. I mean, we see that in many games now.
Yes.
Is that you, like in Marco Polo, you get that little objective thing. And I think it's really good for new players because it lets you focus, well, this is what I should be doing.
I think it's also good for experienced players because for experienced players in a game like this, it's a matter of inches at the end of the game.
Right.
Lots of times scores can be very tight.
Right.
And having achieved the 3 goals that I have on my career card can be the difference between first and second place a lot of times.
Yeah, I'm just saying as a mechanic.
No, I totally agree.
Yeah,
it gives some structure to the early game for a person.
Right, because, like Zia, for example, that's one of the biggest complaints. What do I do? I don't know.
It's a sandbox, and Shia, you can do anything.
Yeah, but for some people, that's very uncomfortable.
No, I agree.
That when you have a career thing, or you have a small hidden objective or a visible one, okay, that's what I'm supposed to be doing.
Yeah, just tell the Shia players that it doesn't matter what you do. You just you roll the dice and you figure out if you win or not based on what the dice come up. So
he's right.
Okay, so. Let's talk about our impressions of Maracaibo. So you're improving your ship so you can get more actions. You are picking up quests. You're exploring the internal world of Mesoamerica, and you are fighting for the British, for the French, or for the Spaniards. At the end of the day, What do you think about the game, Jennifer?
I really like it. I've played it now 20 times. So,
It's amazing.
Well, it's good because I pay the premium to get it early.
Yes, you do.
I got up at 4 a.m. to get to this website.
Let me just tell our listeners out there that you are my dealer.
Right.
You always have been. You have saved me so much money over the years because I see a new game that is coming out, and I'm talking from 2003 to 2014 or 15. What I would do is I would say, I am not buying that game yet. I am not getting it. I am going to go to I'm going to go play games with Jennifer, and she is going to have all of the new stuff, and I'm going to play it with her. And you were the person that allowed me to try before I buy for everything.
I know.
I mean, everything.
But that's something that I do. But back in those days, I was able to flip the games more. Well, I can't say I can still flip games, but I would get more money for them than now because the European and the American markets are much better aligned than they used to be.
Sometimes we wouldn't get some of these games for 2 or 3 years.
Right, exactly. And so there are, there's, so I don't know what you would call it, but I have a dear friend who is locked into people who go to the gathering where everyone knows where to get everything.
Sure. Gathering of friends.
If somebody says, oh, this is out, then she can tell me where to get it. So I've always enjoyed that. And, I pay the premium for Maracaibo, but I've introduced it to at least 30 people.
Sure.
So, and for me, that is what I do now. That's kind of my job, is to, be positive in the hobby and let people see stuff and, try to, and then I sell Tom some of my stuff.
You're the pioneer.
Right.
You really are. You're out there, you're on the explorer track. You're out there exploring,
right.
You're getting these games in, you're learning them, you're teaching them, you're sharing them with people, and then invariably 2 months after that, you're going to be like, yeah, I don't like that game anymore.
Well,
Here you go.
one rule that I have set up now is that if the game is not at least weight 3, I will not pay more than $50 for it.
I think that's fair. For our type of game.
Right, exactly.
For our type of game. Other people prefer lighter fare, and they should have a very different rule for themselves.
Exactly. And so for me, and I have stuck with that this whole year. And I've been very pleased with the results. Because, see, the lighter games, they get played, so many of them are multiplayer solitaire. And that's just not my thing, really.
Not my thing either.
Yeah, they're kind of fun and interesting.
Listen, I have no issue with people that like the more multiplayer solitaire
exactly.
thing. I want everyone to play the kinds of games you want.
Exactly.
And when we review a game here, we are going to give it the full review. We're not just going to say multiplayer solitaire not for us and shut it off.
Right.
We're going to explain everything we can about that game so you can decide whether or not that fits in your playing style.
Right, exactly. Because it's like with Maracaibo, right? There is no direct conflict, as I call it. People call it take that. I call it conflict. Because
I would love to try the game where when a player's ship is in a particular port, you cannot go there. Currently, everybody can go to every place.
Yeah, that's
and there's
Fister, though.
There's no blocking.
Yeah, that's Fister. So,
I get it. I get it.
Yeah, you know what I mean? So, you'll be changing the game somewhat, but I don't know. You could try it. But for me,
So is Maracaibo multiplayer solitaire?
You could call it that if you don't know, if you haven't played it but once. But once you start playing it, you begin to understand that you need to understand what people are doing. And so that takes it out of the pure multiplayer solitaire realm. Perhaps we should have a ranking of multiplayer solitaire. I mean, like Newton is completely multiplayer solitaire, right? I mean, you could never lift your head up and win that game.
Not entirely, because there are on that the main board those tracks that you move.
You're right. Man,
you claim something.
You
claim something, and no one else can claim that. Then you can grab something, which is what we have here in Great Western Trail. you can put down buildings that tax people, that
Right.
robbers that are taking money from people.
I'm
that
not sure.
That you can slow down people by putting buildings in places
right.
and things like that. Buildings have a lot of synergy with that. I will also say that when you get to Kansas City, the choice that you always have an A or B choice
Right.
of what tiles you're putting into
Right.
the game. The pace at which you play the game, all of these are player interactions that
Right.
are interesting.
Right. I think in Maracaibo, those player interactions may be there, but just like with Great Western Trail, when we first started, buildings are terrible. Oh, you should never do buildings, right? Am I right?
People still say that sometimes.
Well, they're
Just
not
true.
correct.
No, they're not correct. No, they're not correct.
I'm just saying that it's going to take, every play I've had, every single all 20 plays have had new players. So when me, you, Matt and Trey, or me, you, Paul, and, other players who have played it a good number of times, when we sit down to play it, that may then show different strategies.
Fair enough.
That we haven't seen.
And by the way, a lot of cities will only have one trade good spot. So
Right.
when a person goes there and they
That's true.
take that, they're blocking. The quests, when you grab a quest,
Right.
Elder cried because he couldn't grab that quest. And there is
You
a lot
made-
of...
You made my favorite man, Eric, cry.
He's the best.
He is, y'all. If you ever get a chance to meet him, you want to meet him. Right? He's a fantastic man.
So here's where I come down on Maracaibo. Let me tell you. I like it, but I don't love it. I like it quite a bit. And I will say this. Every play I've played of it, I like it better than
right.
the previous play.
Right, and I think that's typical of Great Western Trail as well.
No, I loved Great Western Trail
from
the very first play.
It didn't click for us for a few plays, so that's interesting.
It hit
to
my
hear.
tuning fork the very first time I got it to the table. And this, for me, this is not that game.
Right. Well, I mean, as I've already said, Barrage is my favorite game of the year.
Sure.
I didn't say Maracaibo. I would say Maracaibo. Well, the question is where does Pipeline fit, right? And so
That's number 3 for me right now.
I know. Pipelines it's such an underappreciated game. It drives me nuts.
We'll be doing our best of 2019 coming up sometime this turn when we're talking about our favorite things. It's coming up. But getting back to Maracaibo.
Yeah, sorry.
I would say this. I would say that Trey's played it twice and didn't love it. Elders played it once and didn't love it. My friend Jim played it, didn't like it, let alone didn't love it. So the question is this a game that is hard to love, but eventually the juice will be worth the squeeze?
Right.
Or is it a game that you will grow to appreciate over time, but will never quite get to that love situation?
It could be either. I will say this much: it is definitely not on my sale pile.
No, I'm eager to play more of this, especially since with each play I like it better. And let us also say something that we didn't mention: there is a campaign mode. There's a story mode in this game,
and a solo mode,
and a solo mode. So this game has Alexander has built in a story in which once you play the game in story mode, it's almost legacy. Certain bits of that game are going to extend into the next game and into the next game and into the next game, and it's going to tell a story over time. There are pieces that are going to change the map as we go, and that's very interesting too.
Yeah.
So I guess this is one of those instances where I'm kind of on the fence about it. But
I think for one thing, it's attractive, which means it's easy to get it to the table.
Yes.
You understand? Unlike
it's not a very easy teach, though, I will say.
No, it's not an easy teach, but at least people go, oh, that looks interesting.
Yes, agreed.
You know what I mean? And even though I was being technical and pedantic, perhaps framing it as a pirate game would make it more attractive.
Yeah, finding the story and figuring out how it fits into everything is not the easiest thing. I think that's the best way to teach a game, but Maracaibo is not. It's not directly evident how to best do that because there's a lot of little sub mechanisms, and there's it's like, okay, now you just start to grasp this. Now I got to talk about this, and now I got to talk about this.
Right. And so guys, I just want you guys to know that Tom is teaching me how to make a story out of teaching games instead of being someone that just vomits out the rules. So I will learn from him, and my next teach will be better.
You are the best. Folks, that was Maracaibo 2019. Alexander Pfister, I don't know what to tell you. What I will tell you this is that
I would say buy it.
Everybody should play it.
Yeah, or play it, right?
For sure. If you can play it before you buy it, do it. And my guess is that I would recommend that you play it more than once. You play it at least twice, because it might be one of those games that sneaks up on you. There are games
there
like that.
There are definitely games like that.
Yeah.
Absolutely.